Chapter 1. 500,000. Annul the engagement immediately. I'm letting you handle this out of respect for your dignity, Miss Mercer. Ethan Caldwell tossed a black credit card onto the table, his voice cold. Fine. I'll pay you $1 million to sleep with me. Then I'll annul the engagement, Rosalind Mercer replied with a casual air, as if discussing something trivial. Rosalind Mercer, Ethan's face turned ashen. He shot up from the sofa and spat. Have you no shame? How dare you make such a disgraceful joke with me, ha? She thought. She was his fiancé, yet he called her shameless and disgraceful. A pang of bitterness struck Rosalind's heart. For 5 years, she had endured Ethan's cold disdain while he showered his affection on another woman. Do you despise me that much? Rosalind lowered her head, fighting back tears. You know perfectly well that Ivy is the only one in my heart. For her sake, I would never touch you. Stop dreaming. Just as Ethan finished his tirade, his phone rang. He glanced at the screen and saw it was Ivy Langley. His expression softened instantly. Ethan, I just tripped coming downstairs and twisted my ankle. It hurts so much. A sweet, pitiable voice cooed from the other end. Ethan's brow furrowed. Don't move. I'm on my way. He rushed out the door, stuffing the black card into his pocket without a second glance at the heartbroken Rosalind. The woman he spoke of, Ivy Langley, had become her family's adopted daughter after an accident. She called Rosalind sister, and now she had captured her fiancé's heart. Rosalind was once the sole heiress of the Mercer family, showered with love and affection, and she was Ethan's cherished white moonlight. It was laughable that she had now become the woman he despised most. In the city of Orlia, the Mercer and Caldwell families were among the 10 wealthiest. As neighbors and business partners, they had arranged the marriage between Rosalind and Ethan when they were children, officially announcing their engagement when they turned 18. Everyone had envied her, the perfect match for the sole heir of the Caldwell fortune. But then, everything changed. When Rosalind was 19, her parents were caught in a terrible fire. Ivy's father died saving them, and with his last breath, he begged them to take care of his daughter. Ivy, who had lost her mother at a young age, was now an orphan at 19. She was utterly alone and pitiable. Rosalind's parents, overwhelmed with guilt, decided to adopt Ivy, bringing her into their home to live as one of the family. Before that, Rosalind and Ivy had been friends in high school, and they often saw Ethan. But after the fire, Ivy's pitiful demeanor stirred a deep sympathy in Ethan. He comforted her often, and their bond grew stronger. Even Rosalind's parents, out of a sense of obligation, began to prioritize Ivy's feelings, leaving their own daughter by the wayside. Time and again, Ivy would twist the truth, making Rosalind look like the villain in Ethan's eyes. Whenever Rosalind tried to explain, her words were no match for Ivy's tearful, helpless gaze, which made Ethan want to give her all his warmth and protection. Rosalind, Ivy has suffered enough. She lost her only family saving your parents, and you're blaming her over such a small thing? How can you be so heartless? He stopped listening to anything Rosalind said, drew a line between them, and demanded they annul the engagement. The Caldwell family, however, refused. They declared that unless Rosalind voluntarily broke it off, he could forget it. A scandal involving Ethan ending the engagement for another woman would bring immense shame upon their family. Back then, she had been deeply in love with Ethan. No matter how many times he asked for an annulment, she refused, hoping he would eventually see her worth and come back to her. But now, he was willing to pay a fortune just to be with Ivy. She had given him one last chance, and his answer was to tell her to stop dreaming. The old Rosalind would have screamed, hysterically demanding to know why he treated her this way. But now, the ache in her heart was slowly giving way to a calm resolve. Finally, she looked at the email on her tablet, an acceptance letter from the Paris National School of Fine Arts. Classes started in a month. It was time, she thought, to end everything here. In just 30 days, she would disappear from his world completely. He would get his wish. Chapter 2. Ethan was gone for 2 full days. During that time, Rosalind went and got her passport. She didn't tell anyone about her plans to go abroad, not even her parents. When Ethan returned to their apartment, he looked exhausted. The hospital has been swamped with surgeries lately, so I've been too busy to come home. You don't mind, do you? If Rosalind hadn't seen Ivy's social media post about how Ethan had lovingly cared for her for 2 days and nights until her leg felt better, she might have actually believed his lie. "You're an orthopedic surgeon. It's normal for you to be busy," Rosalind said, forcing a smile. Her complete lack of concern unsettled Ethan. In the past, she would have thrown a fit, screaming and venting her resentment and frustration. "Tomorrow is Ivy's birthday. She said since you're her sister, you should come and celebrate with us," Ethan said, his tone suddenly cautious, as if afraid she would refuse and embarrass him. Ivy was 5 months younger than Rosalind. After becoming the Mercers' adopted daughter, she always called Rosalind sister in a cloyingly sweet voice. Rosalind hated it, and Ivy's manipulative nature only made her dislike her more. "All right," Rosalind agreed this time, a plan already forming in her mind. Her unusually compliant response made Ethan freeze for a moment, a strange feeling creeping into his heart. But then he thought, wasn't this what he wanted? He should be happy that she had finally stopped causing trouble. The next day, Ethan and Rosalind arrived at Ivy's birthday party, dressed to the nines. Ivy was radiant in a custom-made pink gown. "Rosie, I'm so happy you could come, I was afraid you wouldn't," she said with a dazzling smile. "Even if you hadn't invited me, I would have come," Rosalind replied politely, pulling her hand away. Ivy's smile stiffened slightly before she turned to whisper something to Ethan. As the party went on, Rosalind tried to ignore their affectionate interactions. But when Ethan went to the restroom, Ivy seized the opportunity to approach her. "So many people have been asking me if I'm Ethan's fiancé. What do you think I should tell them?" she asked, feigning distress. Rosalind knew exactly what she was up to. "Don't worry, I was actually." She was about to mention the annulment when Ivy suddenly grabbed her wrist and splashed red wine all over her own pink dress. Before Rosalind could react, Ivy cried out, "Ah, Rosie, do you hate me this much?" "It's my birthday." All eyes turned to them, and people began to whisper. Just then, Ethan returned to witness the scene. "Rosalind, you've gone too far. I thought you were being kind, but you came here just to cause trouble." He shoved Rosalind away in a fury, pulling the panicked, crying Ivy into his arms. "Don't cry. It hurts me to see you cry," he soothed. He paid no attention as Rosalind stumbled backward, crashing into a massive birthday cake trolley. The cake splattered across the floor, and a sharp edge of the metal stand scraped her arm. Rosalind realized she had been set up by Ivy again, but what hurt the most was Ethan's complete disregard for her and his words. "Don't cry. It hurts me to see you cry." She would never forget when she was 16, hiding on the rooftop and crying after a teacher told her she had no talent for painting. It was Ethan who had skipped class to comfort her, crouching down to hold her with a pained look on his face. "Don't cry. It hurts me to see you cry," he had said. She thought his heart ached only for her, that it would never change. But now he said the same words so easily to another woman. Rosalind stumbled to her feet, enduring the sharp pain, and walked out of the party one step at a time. A strange panic seized Ethan. She usually tried to explain herself, but today she had said nothing. He hurried after her and blocked her path. "You're leaving without an explanation?" She gave a bitter laugh. "I have nothing to say." "Then you will apologize to Ivy," Ethan commanded, his face cold as stone. Chapter 3. Rosalind's eyes burned as she stared at him, holding his gaze. "You'll get your wish, but not right now," she said after a long moment, her words laced with a hidden meaning. She left a confused Ethan standing in his tracks. What did she mean by that? Ethan stood frozen, unable to comprehend. Ivy came over at the perfect moment, interrupting his thoughts. "I'm fine, Ethan. It's not the first time Rosie has acted like this. As long as she's happy. I'll have someone replace your cake," he comforted her softly. At 1 a.m, Rosalind received a message from Ivy. "This is the birthday present Ethan got for me. He flew all the way to an auction in the US just to get it." The words dripped with smug satisfaction. Rosalind glanced at the photo of the diamond-encrusted necklace, smiled faintly, and replied with 2 words, "That's nice." Then she turned off her phone and went to sleep. Ethan called her numerous times, but it went straight to voicemail every time. He found it amusing. Was she turning off her phone out of jealousy? Was this her new way of getting his attention? The next day, Rosalind received a message from her parents, telling her to come home. The moment she stepped through the door, her mother, Helen, slapped her across the face. "Look what you've done, you ruined Ivy's birthday." Her father, Arthur, was also furious. "Her father saved our lives. Is this how you treat our benefactor's daughter?" Besides, she's your sister now, you ungrateful wretch. Standing to the side, Ivy couldn't hide the flicker of excitement beneath her calm expression. Rosalind knew Ivy had twisted the facts and added her own dramatic flair while reporting the incident. "Mom, Dad, if I told you I did nothing wrong, would you believe me?" Of course they wouldn't. For years, they had only believed Ivy's side of the story. Her explanations were always useless, and this time was no different. "We are so disappointed in you. Annul your engagement to Ethan immediately. He doesn't love you anymore." "Why do you insist on clinging to him?" Seeing her chance, Ivy chimed in. "That's right, Rosie. Why make yourself miserable?" She was definitely going to annul it, but Rosalind had no intention of letting Ivy get her victory so easily. She would announce the annulment on the day she left, so she wouldn't have to see their triumphant faces. "Unless Ethan admits to my face that he never loved me, I still have the confidence to win him back. Mom, Dad, I have things to do. I'm leaving," Rosalind said. Ignoring their furious expressions, she walked out of the Mercer house. When she arrived at the art museum, she found Ethan waiting at the entrance. "Why didn't you answer my calls?" he demanded, a hint of frustration in his voice. Rosalind had never ignored his calls before. "My phone is always off when I sleep. Didn't you know that?" Rosalind retorted. Ethan fell silent for a moment, then shook his head. Rosalind let out a soft laugh and turned to leave. "Hey, wait," Ethan said, flustered. "What do you want to say?" Rosalind turned back, her gaze cold. A strange feeling washed over Ethan. Rosalind had felt so different lately, so distant. He found her coldness unsettling, and a wave of irritation swept through him. Before he could finish, Rosalind's phone rang. "I'm busy, I have to go," she said, quickly walking away to answer the call. Ethan's anger turned into a sneer. So the woman had learned to play hard to get, deliberately ignoring him. 2 weeks later, Rosalind went to the Oralia police station to pick up her passport. To her surprise, she saw Ethan ahead of her, helping Ivy walk. Ivy turned her head and saw her. "Rosie, what are you doing here?" Ethan followed her gaze, and his face hardened. "Rosalind, you even followed us here. Don't tell me the person who attacked Ivy on the street was sent by you." Chapter 4. Rosalind's eyes widened in disbelief. "What are you talking about? I'm just here to take care of something." Ivy placed a hand on Ethan's arm, stopping his impending outburst. "Ethan, how could Rosie have known I was hurt? If you hadn't found me in time, I would have been assaulted. But since we've already reported it to the police, let's just drop it." "What are you here to take care of?" Ethan demanded. She couldn't let them know she was here for her passport. Rosalind was at a loss for words. "Since when do you care about my business?" "Don't change the subject. The fact that you won't say what you're doing here proves you have something to hide." Rosalind froze. She couldn't believe she was being framed for something she had nothing to do with. Faced with Ethan's relentless accusations, she let out a self-deprecating laugh. "In your eyes, everything I do is aimed at Ivy. Now, even when I do nothing, I'm still the villain. In that case, is there any point in explaining myself? That's because you're jealous of Ivy. You used to be so good to her. But after she moved into your home, you couldn't stand seeing her have everything." Ethan's icy words pierced Rosalind's heart like daggers. Ivy seized the opportunity to add fuel to the fire. "Please don't fight like this. It's not Rosie's fault. I'm the one who's too greedy, wanting the warmth of a family. Maybe if I move out, Rosie won't hate me so much." Hate. Rosalind wanted to laugh and cry at the same time. This woman was a master of twisting the truth. The sympathy in Ethan's eyes was overflowing. "Ivy, this isn't your fault. Rosalind, this is the last time I'm telling you. Annul the engagement now. I will not tolerate you hurting Ivy again." "Oh, you want to give her a home, is that it?" Rosalind asked, her expression hardening. "Yes," Ethan said, his face cold. "Let's part on good terms. If you show some remorse, we can still be like we were before." How could they ever go back to the way they were? Rosalind's heart grew colder with each passing moment. Back then, the three of them had been close, before Ivy had shown her true colors. Now, everything had changed. Soon, she would be gone, and she would never have to see him again. "We can never go back," Rosalind said, her eyes welling with tears. She fought to control her emotions and turned to leave. An inexplicable pang of sadness struck Ethan's heart, but he dismissed it as fatigue from being overworked lately. Over the next few days, Rosalind was bombarded with photos from Ivy. There were intimate pictures from a trip to Aspen with Ethan, foodie shots from a high-end restaurant, and photos of them golfing, skiing, and horseback riding. It was as if Ivy felt the need to report every mundane detail of her life, showing off endlessly. The voice messages that came with the photos were always the same, mocking Rosalind for living like a widow, clinging to a man whose heart was elsewhere. Rosalind had no time to deal with her. She was busy buying supplies for her move abroad and packing her bags. She thought about the house Ethan had insisted on giving her. Soon, it would return to its rightful owner. On the wall hung a photo of them from years ago, taken at the top of a mountain. He had held her and promised to make her happy forever. Thinking about it now, that promise felt like a joke. Rosalind decided to throw the photo away on the day she left. Keeping it would only be a painful reminder. Just then, her phone rang. It was her university art professor, Professor Albright. He was incredibly excited and insisted on seeing her in person. Rosalind agreed. She had almost forgotten. She had to see him, or the secret she had worked so hard to keep would be exposed. Chapter 5. In a cafe, the two sat across from each other. Professor Albright spoke first. "Rosalind, I just heard the news that you've been accepted to the National School of Fine Arts. Congratulations, I remember when I strongly recommended you apply to the school, but you were willing to give up such a promising future for Ethan. I was so disappointed back then." Rosalind remembered her lifelong passion for oil painting. Through her hard work, she had gotten into a good university, where she had won first place in numerous art competitions. Her professors had held her in high regard, certain she would have a brilliant career in the art world. But at the time, Ethan didn't want her to study abroad. He thought she already had enough and should just be a housewife. She had hesitated, torn between her future and her love. In the end, she had compromised for love, turning down her professor's recommendation. "I've thought it through now," Rosalind said, looking up with determination in her eyes. "But aren't you marrying Ethan? Did he agree to let you leave?" the professor asked, looking puzzled. "That's what I wanted to talk to you about, Professor. I've decided to annul the engagement and leave directly. Please, I need you to keep this a secret for me. I don't want them to know where I am. Including your parents, they have a right to know. It doesn't matter if my parents know. They don't care where I go. They'll just be happy that I've finally let Ethan go." Rosalind's heart had grown cold toward her parents. She used to be the apple of their eye, but under the guise of repaying a debt, they had transferred all their affection to Ivy. Rosalind had become an outsider, constantly criticized. After she left, they would probably forget all about her. "All right, you can count on me." They talked until evening before Rosalind headed back. When she opened the door, she found Ethan sitting on the sofa, his face dark. "Where have you been? Why are you back so late?" Rosalind was surprised he would even ask. He used to come home late all the time, and when she asked him the same question, he would accuse her of being unreasonable, complaining that she didn't understand his work or the pressure he was under, unlike the sensible and considerate Ivy. "I was meeting someone to talk," Rosalind replied dismissively. As she was about to go to her room to freshen up, Ethan grabbed her arm. "With who?" he demanded, his face grim. "I thought you never cared about my business." Rosalind didn't understand why he was so angry. He didn't love her anymore, he even despised her. What she did should be of no concern to him. She pulled her arm free and quickly went into her room. Her lack of an explanation made Ethan uneasy. Her recent strange behavior had made him increasingly anxious. The old Rosalind would have obediently listened to him, had no job, no social life, and would have told him everything, explaining every little thing she did for fear that he would get angry and ignore her. After Rosalind finished washing up, she heard the guest room door slam shut. She knew Ethan was angry. In the past, she would have panicked and rushed to comfort him, but now she didn't care. She simply went to bed and fell asleep. The next day, Rosalind went to an art exhibition. The new exhibit was getting a lot of buzz. As she was heading to the restroom, she heard Ivy's voice coming from a nearby stairwell. "Rosalind is so stupid, just like her parents. The Mercer family is about to be mine. I really have to thank that fire back then. It wasn't in vain that I—" "SHH walls have ears," a strange man's voice interrupted. Rosalind stood frozen in place, her legs feeling weak. She couldn't believe what she was hearing. Could the fire have been connected to Ivy? Chapter 6. A moment later, Rosalind shook her head. Impossible, that accident had cost Ivy her only relative. How could she say she was thankful for it? Maybe she had misheard. Ivy's impatient voice came from the other side of the wall again. I know, I know. By the time she tried to listen for more, the sound of their footsteps was already fading away. Rosalind let out a breath of relief. Not long after she left the restroom, she ran into Ivy, who was also at the exhibition. They had been in the same art department in college, but Ivy's work had always been unremarkable. After graduation, however, she had used the Mercer family's connections to become a curator at the art museum. Rosalind, on the other hand, had become a joke. She had won countless art awards in college and had a bright future ahead of her, but she had given it all up for love. Well, what a coincidence, Rosie. I didn't expect to see you at an exhibition. By the way, do you even understand this stuff anymore? Ivy said mockingly. Of course, Rosalind wasn't going to let her know that she had been secretly following the art world, even creating new works, which had earned her a spot at the Paris School of Fine Arts. Don't tell me you curated this exhibition, Rosalind said, skillfully changing the subject. At this, Ivy looked quite pleased with herself. Of course, you never thought I'd achieve something like this, did you? If you truly have this level of skill, then of course it's impressive, Rosalind said pointedly. Ivy had a history of plagiarizing other people's work, and the Mercer family had always paid to make the problems go away. The innovation in this exhibition's layout was remarkable. It felt as though standing in the center of the hall revealed an endless vista of beauty. It was impossible that Ivy had come up with the plan on her own. What's that supposed to mean? Ivy snapped, embarrassed and angry. Seeing that Rosalind had gone back to looking at the paintings and was ignoring her, she shot back. Go on and be jealous, Rosalind, you're just a pitiable person. Then she swaggered off with her assistant. After the exhibition, Rosalind decided to go back to her parents' house to pack up the rest of her belongings. But as soon as she arrived, she was met with a sudden, stinging slap. The pain flared across her cheek before she could even react. Her mother, Helen, looked at her with disappointment. Why can't you learn to behave? You went to the art exhibition today just to humiliate Ivy. If she weren't so generous and didn't hold it against you, she could have sued you for slander. Rosalind was stunned by how quickly Ivy had tattled and how her own mother, who knew the truth, still chose to protect her. A wave of bitterness washed over her. Mom, there was clear evidence that she plagiarized someone's work back then. How can you just let it go? Shouldn't you be reminding her to be more careful? She made a small mistake in the past, but this time she did it all on her own. We saw the initial drafts on her computer, Rosalind sneered. Older people were so easy to fool. With a little money, Ivy could show them whatever they wanted to see. Since you believe what you saw, then I have nothing more to say. In any case, I did not slander her. Rosalind turned and went upstairs to pack her room, but when she opened the door, she froze in shock. The bedroom she had slept in since she was a child had been turned into Ivy's storage room. Her mother had once lovingly decorated this room for her, a princess's chamber. She used to hold her and say, "You'll always be my precious princess." But now, her mother had given her bedroom to Ivy to use as a storage closet. At that moment, her heart ached with an unbearable pain. She stormed downstairs, screaming, "Where is my bedroom? What is even mine in this house anymore?" Chapter 7. Just then, Ivy returned. Hearing Rosalind's words, she put on a pitiful expression. "I didn't want to use your room, Rosie, but Mom and Dad said since you don't live here anymore, I could use it. If you're going to be angry with me. Don't blame them." Rosalind was already furious, and seeing Ivy's feigned innocence, she slapped her across the face. But her mother, Helen, saw it and shoved her to the ground, screaming viciously. "What's wrong with you? How dare you hit Ivy in front of me? She didn't do anything wrong, she's just using your room. And you're making such a fuss. I regret ever having a daughter like you." Her father, Arthur, came out of his study, his face dark as he looked at Rosalind. "Making a scene over a single room, have you no decorum? Ivy is just borrowing it. If you really want to live here, there are plenty of other empty rooms." The piercing words made Rosalind realize just how heartless her family could be. She had always thought that even if they were cold to her, they still considered her their daughter. But now she felt like less than a stranger. "Since she wants it, she can have it," Rosalind said, her heart completely broken. She had no desire to fight anymore. She was leaving soon anyway and would never come back to live here again. Her sudden change in attitude surprised her parents. Just moments ago, she had been raging, and now she was strangely calm and distant. They thought perhaps she had finally learned to be sensible, which gave them a small sense of relief. As Rosalind walked out of the house, she looked back one last time at the home where she had lived for over 20 years. It was now just a building, soon to be filled with people who were no longer a part of her life. She gave a bitter smile and turned away. When Ethan returned to their villa, he saw Rosalind sitting on the sofa, writing something. He asked curiously, "What are you doing?" Startled, Rosalind quickly closed the notebook. Her flustered reaction annoyed Ethan. "Why are you being so secretive? Are you doing something behind my back? Can you not always assume the worst of me?" Rosalind was speechless. She was just writing in her diary. Now, her diary was the only thing she could rely on. No one else was trustworthy. "I wouldn't have to, but the old Rosalind was kind and would never bully Ivy. Now you'd do anything to destroy her," Ethan said, his face a cold mask. Rosalind had heard these accusations so many times that she no longer had the energy to explain herself. If he was determined to misunderstand her, then let him. She was almost curious to see how he would react when he finally learned Ivy's true nature. "You're right, I don't like her. The past is the past, and now is now," she replied coldly. As she was about to go into her room, Ethan slammed her against the wall. His hand, veins bulging, struck the wall next to her head. His voice was hoarse. "So it really was you who arranged for someone to almost assault Ivy? What are you talking about?" Rosalind had almost forgotten about that incident. She had just happened to run into them, and she knew nothing about what had happened to Ivy, let alone that she was the mastermind. "Still playing dumb, you just admitted you hate Ivy other than you. I can't think of anyone else who would hurt her like that," he roared, his eyes bloodshot as he gripped her wrist tightly. "I didn't let go," Rosalind cried out in pain. A red mark was already forming on her wrist from his grip. "You still won't admit it. Do I have to find the evidence myself before you?" "Then go investigate," Rosalind cut him off, her voice sharp and cold. "I did nothing, so I have nothing to fear. But you'd better be prepared for what you find." Chapter 8. Ethan stared at Rosalind's fearless eyes, stunned for the first time. She had never spoken to him like this before. The Rosalind who had always been so obedient was now like a stubborn child, completely unyielding. Taking advantage of his daze, Rosalind forcefully pulled her hand free. "If you find out it wasn't me, you will apologize to me," she continued. She would never forgive Ethan for slandering her without any proof. Never. Ethan watched her walk away, lost in thought. Had he really misunderstood her? A sense of unease crept into his heart, but he quickly dismissed it. This was probably just a trick to cover her guilt. With only 2 days left before her departure, Rosalind had packed all her luggage and hidden it in a closet where Ethan would never find it. They hadn't seen each other for days since their last argument. Rosalind no longer cared about his whereabouts, but she decided she should tell him about the annulment. She thought they should at least part ways peacefully. She decided to cook one last meal, a farewell dinner for herself. She found his number and called him. She expected him not to answer as he had before, but this time he picked up quickly. "What is it?" Ethan's voice was still cold. "Come home for dinner tonight. I have something to tell you," she said, her voice calm and even. He was silent for a moment, then replied, "All right, I'll be there." After hanging up, Rosalind drove to a large supermarket to buy fresh ingredients. As she was about to check out, she saw her parents and Ivy walking arm in arm, laughing and talking. The scene made Rosalind feel a pang of nostalgia. She used to be the one by her parents' side, holding their hands as they shopped, her face beaming with happiness. But ever since Ivy came into their lives, that happiness had vanished. "Well, what a coincidence. Rosie fancies seeing you here." Ivy's shrill voice pulled Rosalind back to reality. She gave Ivy a cold look and didn't reply. "Rosalind, didn't you hear Ivy greet you?" Her father, Arthur, demanded coldly. Her mother, Helen, rolled her eyes at her. "We gave you the best of everything growing up, and you turned out so rude. What a waste. Mom, Dad, don't blame Rosie. Maybe she's just in a bad mood," Ivy said, playing the part of the good person again. Rosalind forced a smile. "Mom, Dad, from now on, you should just focus on loving Ivy. I'm clearly not worthy of being your daughter." Arthur and Helen exchanged a look, surprised by their daughter's words. She used to fight with Ivy for their attention, but now she had completely changed. Seeing her so distant, they felt a strange sense of sadness. Seeing her adoptive parents' expressions change, Ivy was about to add more fuel to the fire, but Rosalind beat her to it. "Oh, by the way, little sister Ivy, I must congratulate you on your impending happiness. Take good care of them from now on." Arthur and Helen felt something was off about Rosalind, but before they could process it, she pushed her cart past them. "I have to go. Bye." She hoped she would never see them again. Back at the villa, she curled up on the sofa. She laughed until tears streamed down her face. She hadn't wanted to part with her parents so cruelly, but they had broken her heart time and time again, leaving her with no expectations. This time, she had truly lost her family. Her phone rang. It was Ethan, saying something urgent had come up and he couldn't make it. He promised he would be back the next night, but tomorrow was her last day. The hot meal she had prepared would have to go into the refrigerator for the next evening. She fell into a deep, hazy sleep. The next morning, the bright sunlight pierced her eyes, giving her a headache. She got out of bed, shivering with a chill. After drinking some hot water, her head spun again. With trembling hands, she dialed his number. "Ethan, can you come back? I'm sick." There was a moment of silence on the other end, then a familiar female voice interrupted. "You should go take care of Rosie. I'll be fine." It was Ivy, her voice full of feigned grievance. Then Ethan's impatient voice came through the phone. "Rosalind, are you pretending to be sick just because I'm not coming home? How despicable." After he hung up, Rosalind let out a self-deprecating laugh. She calmly took some medicine from the first aid kit. She hadn't really expected him to come back. That evening, she felt much better. She took the dinner out of the fridge and set it on the table. She watched the clock tick past 11 p.m., but there was still no sign of Ethan. It seemed there would be no final goodbye. She threw the photo from the wall into the trash, grabbed her suitcase, and headed straight for the airport. When Ethan finally returned, he would probably be very happy. Rosalind typed one last message, then blocked everyone. From now on, she would have her own life. Chapter 9. Ethan called his driver. "Louis, order a chocolate cake." He remembered Rosalind's voice on the phone that morning. She had sounded off. Had she really been sick? He felt a pang of regret for speaking to her so harshly. He had planned to go home early to check on her, but Ivy had held him up. He finally got home at 2 in the morning, holding the chocolate cake. It was a brand she used to love. Whenever she was upset, a slice of this cake would always cheer her up. It had been 3 years since he'd bought it to appease her. He was sure that when she saw it, she'd be thrilled, and her sickness would vanish. He opened the door and flipped on the lights. The first thing he saw was the cold, untouched meal on the dining table. He could almost picture her sitting there, staring at the door, waiting desperately for him to return, only to see the time pass and feel the sting of disappointment. A lump formed in his throat. But then he thought, she loves me so much, she probably won't mind that I'm late this time. "Rosalind," he called out. The only response was silence. She must be fast asleep in the bedroom, he thought with a small smile. He set the cake down and walked towards the bedroom, only to find it empty. In fact, the entire room was spotlessly clean. He was stunned. Where could she have gone so late at night? One possibility came to mind. Her illness had gotten worse, and she had gone to the hospital. He tried calling her, but there was no answer. He rubbed his forehead, a frown creasing his brow as a wave of irritation washed over him. Just then, his mother, Eleanor Caldwell, called. He answered. "Ethan, I have some good news for you." "Try not to get too excited. What good news?" he asked calmly. "Rosalind has finally agreed to annul the engagement. It's good that she's come to her senses. You must be so happy now." Hearing that she had agreed to the annulment, Ethan felt a sudden, hollow confusion. He had been desperate for her to end it, so why, now that she had, did he feel no joy at all? Instead, a suffocating weight settled in his chest. So that was what she had wanted to talk to him about the night before. Since he hadn't shown up, she had gone straight to his parents. "Where is she? I need to hear it from her myself," Ethan demanded anxiously. He had to hear it from her directly, in case she tried to deny it later. "It's so late. Shouldn't she be at home?" his mother said, confused. "You get some rest, Mom. I'll handle this." He hung up and tried calling Rosalind's number again, but the persistent, busy signal nearly made him lose control. So now she's playing the disappearing act. Refusing my calls? Is she trying to make me worry? What a manipulative woman, he thought bitterly. His eyes fell on the trash can. He saw the corner of a photograph sticking out. With trembling hands, he pulled it out. It was a picture of him and Rosalind, their young faces full of love for each other. He hadn't seen that brilliant smile on Rosalind's face in a long, long time. He suddenly remembered those wonderful memories with her, a time when they only had eyes for each other. Fragments of blurry memories flooded his mind. He pressed his hand to his forehead, slumping onto the sofa in distress. He couldn't believe she would throw away a memory she once cherished so much. It was their only photo together, and instead of taking it with her, she had mercilessly tossed it in the trash. It wasn't a game of hard to get. She really didn't want him anymore. He wouldn't accept it. He had to find her. As he stepped out the door, Ivy's call came through. He coldly rejected it, his mind already racing with a new plan. Chapter 10. After enrolling at the Paris School of Fine Arts, Rosalind quickly adapted to European life. She felt a sense of freedom and happiness she had never known before. It turned out that getting away from toxic people really did feel like being reborn. As was tradition, the school held a gala to kick off the new semester. Rosalind made an entrance in a pale yellow strapless gown, instantly capturing the attention of the many handsome men and beautiful women in the room. "Rosalind?" A hesitant yet certain voice called out from a corner. Rosalind turned towards the sound. The moment their eyes met, both of their faces lit up. The man was overjoyed. "It really is you." The man before her was dressed in a sharp suit. He had sun-kissed skin, eyes that curved like crescent moons when he smiled, and strong, defined features that made him look like he could be of mixed heritage. Rosalind didn't hide her excitement. "I can't believe I'm seeing you here, Julian Hawthorne." He looked just as she remembered. They had met during the summer after her senior year of high school. Just after a graduation trip with Ethan, she learned that her grandmother, who lived far up north, had broken her leg. With her parents away on business, she had to buy a ticket and travel thousands of miles by herself. There, she took diligent care of her grandmother, but the days were dull. She often visited the city's art galleries, big and small, to find inspiration before buying materials to paint. Whether she was on a hillside, in a forest, or by a fish pond, she almost always ran into the same person, a boy who was painting in the same spots. That boy was Julian Hawthorne. Over time, they became friends, sharing techniques and critiquing each other's work. Rosalind learned that he was there on his break, sketching to sharpen his artistic senses. It was rare for Rosalind to meet a kindred spirit, and she felt an instant connection. But she knew her limits. For Ethan's sake, she couldn't get too close to another man. It would only hurt everyone involved. With that in mind, she began to consciously distance herself from Julian. He didn't understand why she had suddenly grown cold and kept pestering her about it. Finally, Rosalind couldn't hold back anymore and told him she had a fiancé. Julian knew then that nothing could happen between them, but the passion of young love is a fire not easily extinguished. So, he took the initiative and left, disappearing from her world. Now, after all these years, they were classmates in Paris. The sight of her brought a spark back into Julian's eyes. Back in Orlia, Ethan went to the Mercer house to ask about Rosalind's whereabouts. "Auntie Helen, I wanted to ask where Rosalind has gone. She must have told you, right?" "We have no idea. We heard she agreed to the annulment. I'm surprised she's become so sensible. We tried to persuade her before, but she wouldn't listen," Helen Mercer remarked. "She didn't tell you anything?" Ethan pressed. Arthur Mercer thought back to his last conversation with Rosalind and sensed that something had been off. Perhaps that had been her way of saying goodbye. "Could it be that she's really gone?" he muttered to himself. A flicker of hope appeared in Ethan's eyes. "You know something, don't you?" Helen recalled their last encounter. "We ran into her at the supermarket a while ago, and she said goodbye to us. I just thought—" She didn't dare to finish the thought. Just then, Ivy returned. Seeing Ethan on the sofa, she assumed that now that the engagement was off, he was there to ask her adoptive parents for her hand in marriage. Beaming, she walked over and linked her arm with his, cooing, "Ethan, why did you come over without telling me?" Ethan coldly pulled his arm away. "I'm not here to see you." Ivy froze, confused. Now that the engagement was annulled, shouldn't he be happy? Why was he treating her this way? Chapter 11. Seeing that Rosalind's parents had no idea where she was, Ethan turned to Ivy. "You must know where Rosalind went, right?" Ivy was bewildered, but she quickly suppressed her annoyance and smiled, shaking her head. I don't know either. Do you think Rosie might have disappeared on purpose to get your attention? Suddenly, Ethan felt that Ivy wasn't so innocent after all. After returning home, he made a mysterious phone call. I need you to investigate something for me. Afterward, exhausted, he lay down on the bed Rosalind used to sleep in and fell into a deep slumber. He had a long dream. In it, Rosalind came back, smiling brilliantly at him. He opened his arms, expecting her to run into his embrace and whisper, I'm back. But in the next second, another man appeared beside her. She took the man's arm and walked right past him. He reached out to grab her, but his hand closed on empty air. He woke up with a start, covered in sweat. Looking at the photograph of Rosalind, an indescribable sadness washed over him. He shouldn't have hurt her so much before she left. Thinking back, the signs of her planned departure had been there all along, but he had never paid them any attention. He had ignored her time and time again, breaking her heart. No wonder she had left without even saying goodbye. She had blocked his number and all his messages. He was consumed by anxiety. Soon, however, he found the professor Rosalind had met with. He went to the university and begged Professor Albright to reveal her whereabouts, but the professor insisted he had promised to keep it a secret and refused to say anything. Desperate, Ethan went directly to the university president and, in exchange for a donation to fund a new building, finally learned Rosalind's location. She had gone to the Paris School of Fine Arts to study. He had considered countless possibilities, but he had never imagined she would revive her old dream and leave him for a foreign country. He vaguely remembered the year they graduated from college. Rosalind had wanted to study abroad and had hoped he would go with her. But his parents wanted him to work at the best hospital in Orlia right after medical school. He wouldn't go abroad, and he didn't want her to leave. After he pleaded with her repeatedly, Rosalind gave up the idea of studying abroad. But after that, her light seemed to dim. She spent her days aimlessly, either going to exhibitions or just being with him. His focus gradually shifted away from her. Then, Ivy entered his life more and more. Many times when he looked at Ivy, he saw a glimmer of the radiant Rosalind he had once known, and it was hard not to be captivated. But now, everything had changed. He realized that without Rosalind, he was like a fish out of water, gasping for air. His mysterious phone rang. He answered. Mr. Caldwell, the incident you asked me to investigate, it wasn't orchestrated by Miss Mercer. It was, the person on the other end hesitated. Keep talking. After hearing the results of the investigation, he was stunned. He finally understood that he had truly misunderstood Rosalind. He decided to put his work on hold and go to Paris to find her, apologize, and win her back. After landing, he walked through the fashionable streets of Paris. The city was famous for its art. There were different exhibitions on every street. He used his connections to get into the Paris School of Fine Arts and finally found Rosalind's classroom. He waited anxiously outside for the class to end. As soon as the bell rang, a crowd of students poured out. Rosalind walked out with the crowd, her head down, looking at a book. Suddenly, she heard a familiar voice call her name. Rosalind, she turned her head and stared at the man in front of her, her eyes wide with disbelief. What are you doing here? Chapter 12. The person who had called her was Julian Hawthorne. Rosalind hadn't expected him to be waiting for her outside the classroom. After their brief reunion, they had discovered they were in the same department, in adjacent classes, and sometimes even had combined lessons. Now that Rosalind was single, she didn't mind his company. Just as Rosalind and Julian were about to head to the cafeteria, she saw Ethan standing a short distance away, his face as dark as a thundercloud. Her hand trembled, and the book she was holding slipped from her grasp and fell to the ground. "Ethan, what are you doing here?" she nearly shouted. Julian followed her gaze and saw the man Rosalind had once called her fiancé. Seeing his rival, he couldn't help but feel a surge of displeasure. Ethan, in turn, looked at Julian with even greater annoyance. He demanded of Rosalind, "Did you run all the way here to avoid me, only to hire some actor to deliberately provoke me?" Rosalind didn't know whether to laugh or cry. She never thought Ethan would find her, especially not this quickly and with such a thick air of jealousy. "Hello, I'm not an actor. I'm a friend of Rosalind's from the same department," Julian said, taking the initiative since Rosalind was silent. Ha, you've only been here for a short time and you already have a male friend? Ethan shot back, his anger barely contained as he glared at Rosalind. Rosalind's expression turned cold. You came all this way just to question my relationships with other men? Only then did Ethan remember why he was there. His tone softened. Rosalind, I have something to tell you. Without a second thought, Rosalind refused. I'm busy, you should go back and talk to your precious Ivy. Don't mention her to me, Ethan snapped. He planned to deal with Ivy after he won Rosalind back. So soon you're tired of her? Rosalind found the situation deeply ironic. As she and Julian turned to leave, Ethan blocked their path. Julian, not backing down, shoved him against a wall. I heard you two have annulled the engagement. Please respect her, Julian warned. Defeated, Ethan could only watch her walk away. I'll be waiting for you, Rosalind, he called after her. After lunch, Rosalind went to the art studio, but she couldn't bring herself to paint on the blank canvas. Julian gently tapped her on the head. What are you thinking about? Rosalind composed herself. Nothing. You seem to have a lot on your mind. You won't be able to paint like this. Let's go out and clear your head. He took her to a park, where they basked in the sun and felt the gentle breeze. But the thought of Ethan still made her sigh. This can't go on, she thought. She had to face the problem head-on, or she would keep running into Ethan, who was starting to feel like a ghost haunting her. So she went to find Ethan. He was squatting in front of her apartment building, holding a megaphone, debating whether to shout her name. Finding the scene utterly embarrassing, Rosalind immediately stopped him. You said you had something to tell me. Get to the point, Rosalind said coldly. I'm sorry, Ethan said, mustering all his courage. It was the first time in his life he had ever apologized to Rosalind. She was so surprised by his behavior that she stood stunned for a few seconds. I found out that the incident where Ivy was almost assaulted wasn't your doing. So, I'm apologizing for that. But that's not the only thing I'm sorry for. Rosalind, I know I was wrong. I was too hard on you in the past, always misunderstanding you. Can you forgive me? He asked, his eyes filled with a mix of hope and pleading. Rosalind didn't understand what he was trying to do. He had been so desperate to annul their engagement, and she had given him what he wanted. Now he was here, begging for her forgiveness. It was laughable. Chapter 13. Ethan, does it even matter if I forgive you? I've already done what you wanted. I annulled the engagement and moved far away from you. You should be happy that I've been so considerate, Rosalind said with a faint, dismissive smile. To Ethan, that smile was incredibly mocking, as if she was laughing at him for getting what he deserved. He took a step closer to her, but she took a step back. Seeing her so distant and cold, Ethan felt a deep unease. He couldn't believe Rosalind would hurt him like this. Rosie, don't be angry anymore. Give me one more chance. I promise I'll never do anything to hurt you again. As for Ivy, I will handle my relationship with her, he pleaded, his eyes red. But Rosalind wasn't falling for it. I told you before, we can never go back, and now we have no relationship whatsoever. So I hope you'll stop harassing me and go back to your country immediately. Ethan shook his head, his face a mask of disbelief. Rosie, we've known each other for so many years. How can you say we have no relationship? If you're angry, you can hit me, you can yell at me. I'll stand right here and let you vent. Just please, don't ignore me. He was convinced that Rosalind still loved him and that her anger was just a sign of how much he had hurt her. It wouldn't be easy to calm her down with just a few words. Rosalind, however, felt helpless. She had already let go of her feelings for him, but this was like talking to a brick wall. He hadn't heard a single word she'd said. She has a boyfriend. Julian appeared out of nowhere, his expression unreadable as he spoke to Ethan. Before Rosalind could react, Julian pulled her into his arms. His strong shoulders gave her a sense of security, and she found that she didn't resist his touch at all. Ethan froze, his fists clenching at his sides as rage boiled within him. This morning you lied and said you were just friends from the same department. Now you're pulling this stunt. Rosalind, I'm not that easy to fool. I thought you would have figured out my feelings for her by now. I didn't realize I had to spell it out for you. I can't stand seeing someone harass my girlfriend. Mr. Caldwell, I suggest you leave, Julian said with a disdainful smirk. Ethan heard the hostility in his voice and was about to retort, but Rosalind beat him to it. I don't love you anymore, Ethan. She took Julian's strong, well-defined hand and held it up for Ethan to see. He is my boyfriend now. So please, stop interfering in my life. Her words struck Ethan like daggers. He stumbled back a step, still unwilling to believe it. The Rosalind who had loved him for so many years couldn't have just fallen for someone else so quickly. He refused to accept it. After a moment, he spoke, his voice filled with defiance. I won't give up. I will win your heart back with my own efforts. One day, you will come back to me. As for you, Ethan said, turning to Julian with a cold glare, do you really think you can compete with over a decade of our history? Feelings aren't measured in time, but in sincerity. I, Julian Hawthorne, am not afraid of you. The confident declaration struck a chord deep within Rosalind. Her cheeks flushed, a feeling she hadn't experienced in a long time. But Ethan stood frozen. Julian Hawthorne. He had heard that name in his family circles. He was the only son of the most prominent and wealthy art family in North City, a prodigy with a profound talent for painting. But he had also heard rumors that Julian was a player, with countless girlfriends. If that was true, wasn't Rosalind being played? Watching them walk away, Ethan gritted his teeth. He would never let Julian Hawthorne succeed. Chapter 14. It wasn't until Ethan was out of sight that Rosalind realized she was still holding Julian's hand. Embarrassed, she looked down and was about to let go, but Julian tightened his grip. Surprised, Rosalind looked up, a blush creeping across her cheeks. Thank you for helping me out back there. But what I said then, you don't have to take it seriously, she said softly. What if I want to take it seriously? He said, holding her hand firmly. Actually, there's something I've been wanting to tell you for a long time, but I've been struggling with it, afraid that you... Afraid of what? Rosalind asked, looking at him intently. All right, I'm just going to say it. Julian took a deep breath and held both of her hands in his. Rosalind, I like you. I've liked you for a long time. When we were 19, you told me you had a fiancé, so I left. But now, I don't want to miss my chance with you again. Seeing his flushed cheeks and earnest expression, Rosalind's eyes sparkled, and her heart began to race. After spending some time with him, she realized that she felt a surge of happiness whenever she saw him. She wasn't sure if she liked him too, but in that moment, hearing his sincere confession, she knew her heart was moved. Seeing Rosalind's silence, her wide-eyed stare, Julian's own eyes fell. He sighed softly. It's okay. I'm not asking for an answer right now. Even if there's still a place for him in your heart, I'm willing to wait for you. I'll wait for the day you turn around and see me. I'll always be here. Julian turned to leave, but Rosalind stepped in front of him. A small smile played on her lips. I was a little stunned just now, but I didn't say no. Hearing this, Julian's eyes lit up. He turned back, his face full of excitement. You didn't say no. Does that mean you'll be my girlfriend? Rosalind looked down, biting her lip, and nodded gently. Overjoyed, Julian swept her into his arms and spun her around under the moonlight. Their faces were radiant with a happiness they had never known before. The school recently held a major art exhibition, inviting artists from all walks of life to attend. Julian's first prize-winning piece was hung in the center of the exhibition hall, and Rosalind's entry was displayed right next to it. The colors and composition of the two paintings complemented each other perfectly, drawing praise from many art enthusiasts. The university president arranged a celebration dinner for Julian and Rosalind. The attendees were mostly industry celebrities and business tycoons. Ethan was also there, standing in a corner, holding a glass of champagne, quietly watching the beautifully dressed Rosalind from afar. He had to admit, in that moment, she was so dazzling that he regretted his past actions even more. He had carefully re-examined all the clues from the past and realized that he had never actually seen her bully Ivy with his own eyes. All this time, he had only listened to Ivy's side of the story, which led him to misunderstand and hurt Rosalind time and time again. He had thought that Rosalind was just trying to make him angry that day, using Julian as a shield. He never imagined they would actually become a couple. Ethan couldn't tolerate it. He glared at Julian, who was standing beside her, and walked over. Rosalind, how can you be with someone like him? Don't you know about Julian's past? Ethan whispered as he approached her. His past is none of your business, Rosalind said coldly. Chapter 15. Seeing Rosalind still so cold towards him, a lump formed in Ethan's throat, but he was determined to tell her the truth. Julian has had countless rumored girlfriends in the past. No one even knows which one he was serious about. How can you fall for such a player? From behind him, Julian gave a charming smile. "Mr. Caldwell, your information is a bit outdated. You should probably get an update. Those were just rumors. Now everyone knows that Rosalind is my official girlfriend." Rosalind linked her arm with Julian's, smiled sweetly at him, and then rolled her eyes at Ethan. "You seem to underestimate me. Do you really think I don't know how to judge if a man is worthy of my heart? I'm not as foolish as I used to be, you understand?" Ethan's face flushed, and he was at a loss for words. Just then, his phone rang. He looked down and saw it was Ivy. In the week since he had been in Paris, Ivy had called him dozens of times a day. Even though he ignored her calls, she was relentlessly persistent. This time, he couldn't take it anymore and answered. A familiar, whiny voice came from the other end. "Ethan, you finally answered my call. Where have you been? You haven't come to see me. I miss you so much. Didn't my secretary tell you?" He had specifically instructed his secretary to tell Ivy that he was attending an international medical conference abroad and his return date was uncertain. "I heard you went abroad, but he didn't tell me which country. If you're too busy to come back, I can just fly over to see you. Don't worry, I won't disturb your work." At that moment, Ethan found her incredibly annoying, especially after learning the truth about the incident. He had lost all his previous patience with her. "Just wait for me to come back. And remember, don't call me again," Ethan said before hanging up. His cold tone left Ivy baffled. Ever since Rosalind had left, she had noticed a sharp decline in Ethan's attitude towards her. She couldn't understand it. After all the effort she had put in, was she still no match for a woman who was already gone? When Ethan put his phone away, he looked around, but Rosalind and Julian were nowhere to be seen. The host on stage announced, "The cultural performance is about to begin." Everyone took their seats, but without Rosalind in sight, Ethan was completely distracted. Meanwhile, Rosalind had taken Julian up to the rooftop to enjoy the breeze. "All right, isn't there something you want to explain to me?" She looked at Julian's handsome profile. She wasn't unaware of his popularity at school. From the beginning, she knew he was heaven's favored son, always the center of attention. Being with him often made her the focus of gossip and whispers. "Of course, I have to explain. I can't let you misunderstand," he said, wrapping his arm around her waist and resting his head on her shoulder as he looked out at the blue sky. "That guy, what's his name, was half right. I did have a lot of rumored girlfriends in the past, but those were all from wealthy families trying to arrange a marriage with me. I'd reject one, and another would pop up. So I just stopped caring and let them pay for the tabloid stories. After a while, people naturally assumed I was a playboy." "So, will it still be like that now?" Rosalind asked gently. "No, and it never will be again," he said, his gaze firm as he gently placed a kiss on her lips. Chapter 16. The celebration dinner was still underway when a notification pinged on everyone's phones. It was a statement Julian had released, clarifying the rumors. He also warned that if anyone infringed on his image rights or photoshopped intimate pictures of him again, he would sue them without mercy. The statement concluded by declaring that he had only one true girlfriend, Rosalind. The venue erupted in a buzz of conversation. This was even sweeter than an official announcement. No one had expected Julian to be willing to offend so many people for Rosalind's sake. When Ethan saw the announcement, his grip on his phone tightened. He finally understood why Rosalind hadn't believed him. So Julian had this up his sleeve, but he refused to admit defeat. He still believed that Rosalind loved him and was only with Julian to make him jealous. Next up is our interactive game session. "Let's welcome our main characters to the stage," the host called out. A moment later, Rosalind and Julian appeared on stage together. The host announced excitedly, "All right, our two stars will be blindfolded. Everyone else will be NPCs. Let's see if they can find each other in this crowd." "The first pair to hold hands wins," Ethan sneered at the game. He knew Rosalind. How could she possibly find Julian while blindfolded? She couldn't even tell her left from her right. Soon, Rosalind and Julian were blindfolded and separated by about 10 feet. They began to search for each other. Rosalind fumbled in the darkness, rejecting the hands of others who tried to grab hers. As she slowly approached Ethan, she inexplicably stopped. A jolt of excitement shot through Ethan. He knew it. Rosalind could sense his presence. After so many years, she must remember his scent. He was about to reach out and take her hand, but in the next second, she brushed past him without a second thought. His heart sank. Nearby, Julian was also searching intently. As the two of them got closer, Ethan, unwilling to give up, stepped between them to block their path. But at that very moment, as if struck by a sudden burst of energy, Rosalind and Julian simultaneously shoved Ethan out of their way. He stumbled back several feet, nearly falling to the ground. Rosalind and Julian clasped hands tightly. They pulled off their blindfolds, confirmed it was each other, and smiled. The host spun around in excitement. Let's congratulate them on winning the game. The prize is a pair of chocolate hearts. Ethan tugged at his tie, about to approach Rosalind, when Julian leaned in and gave her a deep, passionate kiss on the lips. The crowd erupted in cheers. Even in the romantic city of Paris, nothing could be more romantic than the two of them. The air seemed to freeze. Ethan saw the kiss and stood stunned. He had believed that Rosalind still loved him, but everything that had just happened seemed to prove that he was no longer in her heart. Otherwise, she wouldn't have hurt him, ignored him, and been so intimate with another man over and over again. He couldn't bear to watch them kiss. He pushed through the crowd, rushed out of the banquet hall, and dialed his secretary's number. "Book me the earliest flight back home. I need to leave immediately." He glanced back at the bustling hall one last time, thinking to himself that one day he would make Rosalind come back to him. This time, when he returned, he was going to deal with someone. Chapter 17. The plane landed at Orlaya International Airport. Ethan immediately called Ivy. "Meet me at the old place after work." "Of course, I'll be waiting for you." Ivy was thrilled to get his call. She was sure that after being away for so long, he must have missed her terribly. She took the rest of the day off, went to a salon to get her hair styled, and bought a new set of sexy lingerie and a Chanel dress. After a spritz of perfume, she drove her Audi to the private villa where they used to meet. As she opened the door, she saw Ethan standing with his back to her, looking out the glass window of the living room, sipping a glass of whiskey. She crept up behind him and wrapped her arms around his waist, burying her face in his strong back. "Ethan, you're finally back. Do you know how crazy I've been thinking about you?" Before she could finish, Ethan pried her arms off him and turned around, his face a mask of cold fury. Ivy had never seen him look at her with such a terrifying expression. She was too scared to speak. "I'm giving you one chance to tell me the truth. You told me before that you were almost assaulted by a man in an alley. Is that true?" he demanded coldly. A wave of panic washed over Ivy. Could he know something? Her expression immediately shifted to one of pitiful vulnerability. "Ethan, that was so long ago. Why are you bringing it up again?" "Just tell me, yes or no," Ethan said, rubbing his temples, his face full of impatience. "Yes, it's true," Ivy stammered. "Then let me ask you another question. Why did you insist, without any evidence, that it was Rosalind who orchestrated it?" "Well, she just happened to be at the police station, and she's always hated me." "You thought it was her too back then," Ivy continued, playing the innocent victim. "Ha, what a masterful way to frame someone. I never realized you were so good at twisting right and wrong." Ethan leaned in, his cold hand gripping her chin. "Did you really think I would stay in the dark forever? Ivy, you underestimate me." Hearing this, Ivy's body began to tremble. "Did he find out?" "No, I made sure they erased all the traces. How could he?" She forced herself to remain calm and grabbed Ethan's veiny hand. "Ethan, listen to me. It was really her who wanted to harm me, it was." "Enough," he roared, flinging her hand away. "How long are you going to lie to me? I gave you a chance, but you still won't admit it. Ivy, you directed and starred in your own little play just to frame Rosalind and make me hate her even more, didn't you?" "You've hidden it well." Ivy shook her head repeatedly, tears welling in her eyes as she looked at him, trying to grab his sleeve. I was wrong, Ethan. It's because I love you too much. I only did it because I love you so much. Please forgive me. I promise I'll never make that mistake again." Please, tears streamed down her face, and her soft sobs were heart-wrenching. In the past, this display would have triggered Ethan's protective instincts, and he would have forgiven her without a second thought. But now, thinking of how Ivy had repeatedly bullied Rosalind, he was filled with rage. "Don't play the victim with me. I'm not falling for it again." Just as he finished speaking, his mysterious phone rang. "Mr. Caldwell, we've found something else. We need to speak with you in person." After hanging up, Ethan stared at Ivy with a complicated expression. How many other things are you hiding from me? Ivy was instantly terrified. Please, don't investigate me. I haven't done anything else wrong. It was just this once. Ethan turned his face away, refusing to listen. He grabbed his coat from the sofa and prepared to leave, but Ivy, with trembling hands, blocked his path. Don't go, Chapter 18. Seeing Ivy's terrified expression, Ethan was certain she had done something even worse. He snarled, "Get out of my way," but Ivy clung to his sleeve, refusing to let him leave, her face streaked with tears. Ethan, I admit I deliberately made things difficult for Rosie in the past to make you hate her more. It's my fault, I shouldn't have treated her like that, but I truly love you, I did it all to be with you. Can't you forgive me? I'm begging you, I can apologize to her, I'll do anything you ask. But at that moment, Ethan couldn't hear a word she was saying. After all the harm she had caused Rosalind, a few tears and pleas for forgiveness were not enough. He lifted her tear-stained face again. Did Rosalind's family know you were treating her this way? As I recall, they seemed to dote on you. Ivy's eyes widened in terror. Of course, she couldn't let the Mercers know what she had done, or she would lose everything. Seeing her shake her head repeatedly, Ethan knew what she was afraid of. You said you'd do anything I ask, Ethan said with a chilling smile. A flicker of hope appeared in Ivy's eyes, and she nodded vigorously. Fine, go to Rosalind's parents and confess everything. Make it clear that you were the one bullying Rosalind all along. If you do that, I might be willing to overlook your other misdeeds. How about it? Ivy knew this was a chance, but she hesitated. Neither option was what she wanted, but she had to choose the lesser of two evils. I'll give you 2 days to think about it. If I don't hear anything from you after 2 days, don't blame me for digging up your other secrets. Ethan warned before putting on his coat and leaving. Ivy stared at his retreating back, lost in thought. Ethan went to see Rosalind's parents. Strangely, their seemingly calm faces betrayed a hint of anxiety. Uncle Arthur, Auntie Helen, is something on your minds? He asked. Helen shook her head. I haven't been sleeping well lately. My chest feels heavy. Arthur sighed. Don't mention it. Rosalind has been gone for a while now, and she hasn't told us where she went. Your aunt is naturally worried. Ethan thought for a moment and decided to tell them Rosalind's whereabouts. I found out a while ago that she's in Paris, but I think the reason she didn't tell you is probably because she didn't want to. Paris? That's so far, Helen said, stunned. Lately, I've been thinking maybe we were too strict with her. Is that why she wanted to leave us? Arthur said helplessly. I think you may have misunderstood her a lot. In any case, don't worry too much for now. I've seen her and she's doing fine, Ethan reassured them. Far away in Paris, Rosalind sneezed twice. Julian, who was beside her, rubbed her nose. Are you catching a cold? Rosalind smiled playfully. Someone must be secretly cursing me. Julian chuckled. You believe in that stuff? You're not allowed to laugh. Maybe it's true, Rosalind said with a proud pout. I've discovered that you're very cute like this, he said, lazily propping up his chin, his peach blossom eyes filled with a radiant smile. Rosalind looked up at him, her face flushing red. Julian couldn't resist, leaning in closer to her soft lips. Just as he was about to kiss her, his phone suddenly rang. Chapter 19. They followed the ringing to find the phone. Rosalind said apologetically, My phone was too far away. I'll just step out to take this. I don't want to disturb your painting. Julian nodded helplessly. If it weren't for the phone, the mood wouldn't have been ruined. Rosalind answered the call. The person on the other end told her they had found out a lot about Ivy, but some of the information was old and lacked concrete evidence. Unless Ivy confessed herself, they couldn't do much to her. Rosalind was shocked. She said, Send the information you have to my private email. If I need anything else, I'll contact you again. Just as she hung up, she heard Julian's curious voice from behind her. What information? Rosalind thought he had heard everything and turned around nervously, hugging him. It's... A classmate asked me for a favor, so I had them send me the files. I see. Do you need my help with it? Julian asked with a gentle smile. No, you're busy with your competition. You have enough on your plate, Rosalind said, gently pinching his soft cheek. Julian had no choice but to drop it. By the way, my birthday party is in 2 weeks. You can't miss it. I want my girlfriend to be the star of the show, he said with an adoring smile. Rosalind giggled. All right, I'll ask you a question. If you answer it correctly, I'll go. I'm all ears. Let's say we have 2 children. If I buy a box of Swiss rolls with 8 pieces in it, How would you divide them among us? Rosalind asked, feigning seriousness. Julian scratched the back of his head, wondering why such a question would even exist. He thought about it seriously for a moment. Why do we have to divide them? You can eat as many as you want. The kids can't eat that much anyway. If we run out, we'll just buy more. Do you think I can't afford 8 Swiss rolls? If you really like them, I'll just buy the whole factory for you. How about that? What a magnanimous response. Rosalind almost burst out laughing at his earnest answer. There are only 8, you have to divide them. Julian pursed his lips and replied, That's simple, I won't eat any. You can have as many as you want. Whatever you can't finish, you can give to the kids. If you eat all of them, I'll salute you as a true champion. Ha 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 ha. Rosalind burst out laughing. But thinking about it, his answer was nearly perfect. She couldn't find any fault with it. It was true that when you love someone, you spoil them endlessly. With Julian, she truly felt loved, not subjected to cold shoulders and constant misunderstandings. Rosalind couldn't help but stand on her tiptoes and kiss his forehead. I promise, I'll be at your birthday party. You just said, if we have 2 children, I was thinking. Rosalind raised her index finger to his lips, shushing him with a shy, playful look. No thinking about that. Julian gave a charming smile and hugged her tightly. We'll think about it later. Ethan stared at the clock on the wall. The 2 days were almost up. Just as his patience was wearing thin, Ivy called. Ethan, I promise I'll confess to them. Please don't pursue this any further. I'll never make this mistake again, Ivy said in a timid voice. Fine, go, Ethan said coldly before hanging up. Ivy clutched her phone, her gentle expression instantly hardening into a look of fierce determination. Don't blame me, Ethan. I can't let them know anything I've done. She scrolled through her contacts to an unnamed number, dialed it, and commanded, Get ready to make your move, just don't kill him. The person on the other end took a drag from a cigarette and replied excitedly, Don't worry, he won't die, Chapter 20. After half a day with no news, Ethan called the Mercer house. Helen answered. Auntie Helen, is Ivy there with you? He asked. Yes, she is. She just said she has something to tell us and thought you should be here too. Are you free now? Helen asked gently. I am. I'll get ready and come over. Wait for me. He hung up and went to the garage to get his car. Not long after he started driving, he noticed a black G-Wagon that seemed to be following him. He grew wary, deliberately speeding up and taking winding roads. As he crossed a large bridge, he thought he had lost the vehicle. But suddenly, a loud honk blared from his side. He turned his head to look. The next second, bang, the black SUV slammed violently into his car. He didn't have time to brake. The windows shattered, and he instantly blacked out. At the Mercer villa, Arthur and Helen waited, but Ethan never appeared. Strange, we've been waiting for half the day. Why isn't Ethan here yet? Helen muttered. Arthur sighed from the sofa. Forget it, let's not wait for him. Ivy, if you have something important to say, just say it. A faint, almost imperceptible smile touched Ivy's lips before her expression crumpled into one of near tears. She knelt before them, sobbing. Mom, Dad, forgive me. The truth is I'm pregnant. What? Arthur and Helen's eyes widened in shock. You're pregnant? With whose child? Who did this? Arthur roared. Even though Ivy wasn't his biological daughter, he couldn't tolerate such a thing happening in the Mercer family. It's Ethan's, she said, tears streaming down her face, making it impossible for them to scold her. Helen gently helped her up. Ivy, no wonder you wanted to wait for him to get here. You wanted to surprise him. Since Ethan has already annulled his engagement with Rosalind, he can marry you. He's not unwilling, is he? I remember he cared for you a lot, Arthur said. Lately, we've had some disagreements. He promised to marry me before, but now, Ivy trailed off, wiping her tears. Arthur slammed his teacup down. He got you pregnant. Does he intend to be irresponsible towards you and the child? Don't worry, I'll handle this, Ivy nodded. Just then her phone rang. After a brief conversation, she collapsed to the floor. What is it, Ivy? Helen asked, worried. He's been in an accident, Ethan. He was in a car crash at the hospital. Ethan was in the operating room. The Caldwell family rushed over, waiting anxiously outside. Ivy also drove over. 2 hours later, a doctor emerged. How is he, doctor? My son? Eleanor Caldwell couldn't stop crying. Ivy supported her. The patient's condition is quite serious. He has sustained nerve damage to his brain. We'll need to observe him in the ICU for a couple of days. the doctor explained. Ivy looked at Ethan's head, heavily wrapped in bandages, with a complex expression. Don't blame me for being ruthless, she thought. You're the one who didn't give me a way out. During her free time, Rosalind opened her private email to look at the files her investigator had sent. The more she read, the tighter her brow furrowed. By the end, she could barely breathe. She slumped over her desk, her mind in a turmoil. If the evidence wasn't right in front of her, she would never have known that Ivy's intentions were even more venomous than she had imagined. She was capable of such heinous acts. She was about to go out to the balcony for some fresh air when she heard Julian on the phone. "Is it handled?" he asked, his voice devoid of warmth. After hearing a satisfactory answer, he hung up. He turned and saw Rosalind behind him, a flicker of panic on his face. Seeing his furtive behavior, Rosalind couldn't help but ask, "What are you doing?" Just a small matter I had someone take care of. I'm going to bed now," he said, scurrying away. Rosalind watched him go, feeling for the first time that she couldn't see through him at all. Chapter 21. After passing the critical period, Ethan was moved to a regular VIP room. 2 days later, he opened his eyes, looking around in a daze. Seeing him awake, Ivy burst into tears, clutching his hand. "Ethan, you're finally awake. Do you know how worried I was about you?" He blankly pulled his hand away. "Who are you? Where am I?" Ethan's parents, who had just returned from a meal, saw that their son was awake and were equally emotional. "Son, you're finally awake." "You are?" Ethan blinked, looking at them as if they were strangers. "Son, what's wrong with you?" Dr. Eleanor Caldwell frantically called for the doctor. After a thorough examination, the doctor informed them that Ethan had likely suffered memory loss due to nerve compression, and there was no telling when he might recover. Hearing this news, Ivy was secretly ecstatic. It was as if fate itself was helping her. Soon, Ethan was discharged to recuperate at home. Arthur and Helen Mercer went to visit him, taking the opportunity to discuss the marriage. The two of them have been together for a while now, and Ivy told us Ethan promised to marry her. "He can't go back on his word, can he?" Arthur said. He had no intention of telling the Caldwells about Ivy's pregnancy, as it would bring shame upon his own family. But Ethan still doesn't remember her. To talk about marriage now seems a bit rushed. Let's let them spend more time together. If his memory returns, they can get married then. It's not too late, Eleanor reasoned. Her logic was sound, so they had to put the matter aside for now. Seeing that even their direct appeal had failed, Ivy was trying to think of another plan when her phone rang. It was Rosalind. She was surprised. She had almost forgotten about that woman. "Rosalind, I thought you'd gone into hiding. It's been so long, you still have the nerve to contact me," she answered, taking the offensive. "So you've finally dropped the act. I was starting to think you were going to keep calling me Rosie forever," Rosalind said, staring at the file in her hand. "There's something I really want to know. That fire my parents were in all those years ago, was it really an accident?" Confronted with a secret she had buried for so long, Ivy felt a flicker of panic, but she quickly masked it. "That was investigated thoroughly back then. It was an accident. What do you mean by bringing it up now?" "No matter how long it's been, traces always remain. Ivy, what if I told you I have evidence that you deliberately set that fire?" What are you talking about?" "Tell me where you are, I'll come find you, and we can talk about this face to face." Ivy's hands began to tremble. So nervous, a guilty conscience. "You want to know where I am so you can send someone to silence me, right?" Rosalind taunted. "You're insane. How could I possibly do something like that? Like murder?" Ivy suppressed her rage. How could she tolerate being cornered by Rosalind? Suddenly, an idea came to her, and her tone became triumphant. "If you really had evidence, you would have already gone to the police and had me arrested. You wouldn't be wasting time talking to me. Since you called, I have some good news for you. I'm about to marry Ethan. Even though he lost his memory in a recent car accident, I can still make him fall in love with me all over again." A car accident? Memory loss? Rosalind's eyes widened in disbelief. Ethan had only been back in the country for a short time, and he had already been in an accident. She felt something was very wrong. What day was his car accident? The answer made Rosalind jump to her feet. The day of Ethan's accident was the same day she had seen Julian on the rooftop, having that cryptic conversation. It was terrifying to consider. Could it have been him? Chapter 22. Rosalind immediately went to find Julian. She had to confront him and get a clear answer. She didn't want to let her imagination run wild and misunderstand him. Julian was in his studio, focused on his new painting, when Rosalind stormed in, her face dark. "What's wrong? You don't look happy," Julian said, getting up to hug her, but Rosalind sidestepped him. "I need to ask you something, and you have to answer me truthfully," she said coldly. Her sudden icy tone took Julian by surprise, but he still nodded obediently. "A week ago, on the balcony, who were you talking to? What did you ask them to handle? Are you going to tell me?" Julian hadn't expected her to ask about that. He felt a pang of guilt. He couldn't let her know now. "Didn't I explain that day? You were vague." "Rosalind, trust me, I haven't done anything to betray you. I just can't tell you right now. You'll find out one day, just wait a little longer, okay?" Julian pleaded. Rosalind knew he wouldn't tell her the truth, and a surge of anger welled up inside her. That day, Ethan was in a car accident. Why was the timing so coincidental? He was in a car accident? Julian looked genuinely shocked. Rosalind couldn't find any flaw in his reaction. "So how is he now? Wait." Julian finally caught on, his eyes meeting Rosalind's cold, suspicious gaze. He understood instantly. "So, you suspect his car accident had something to do with me?" Rosalind didn't deny it. "Otherwise, why won't you explain that phone call? If I told you now, would you still believe me?" he asked, his handsome face clouded with disappointment. Rosalind sighed. "I think we need to separate and cool down for a while." Julian froze for a second, then grabbed her arm tightly. "Rosalind, don't do this." "I need to go back to my country to handle some things," she said, coldly pulling her arm away. "Are you going to see Ethan?" Julian's eyes turned red. "You still have feelings for him, don't you?" "It has nothing to do with him. Why are you being so jealous over nothing when you've calmed down? You can come find me." Rosalind turned and left. Julian stood in place, his eyes flashing with emotion. After a period of rest, Ethan stood alone by the window and dialed a long, unused number. "Tell me everything you've found out now." "Yes, Mr. Caldwell, but we recently discovered that someone else is also investigating Ivy Langley." "Who?" "Rosalind Mercer." Ethan raised an eyebrow. He hadn't expected her to be thinking along the same lines. "That's the woman I love," he thought. After listening to the detective's full report on Ivy's secrets, he realized the woman was even more cunning than he had imagined. Fortunately, he had a backup plan. Otherwise, he might have lost his life. Ethan smirked. Ivy would never guess that he was faking his amnesia just to make her lower her guard and walk right into his trap. At that moment, Ivy entered with a bowl of porridge. "Ethan, it's time to eat. I also have some good news for you, but don't be too shocked." She leaned in and whispered in his ear, "I'm pregnant. I was already 3 months along before you lost your memory." Ethan's breath hitched. The news completely upended the game he had so carefully planned. He stared at her in disbelief. "Are you telling the truth?" Ivy smiled sweetly and nodded vigorously. "Of course, it's true. I wouldn't dare lie to you. We're going to have a baby. Don't you want to give him a home?" Ethan remained outwardly calm. "If it's true, then of course we should get married." Chapter 23. After calming Ivy down and sending her away, Ethan dropped his smiling facade. He made another call. "Didn't you find out if Ivy was pregnant?" "Mr. Caldwell, I was just about to call you. We've confirmed that Ivy did indeed have a prenatal checkup recently. We have the report." "Impossible, I don't believe she's carrying my child. Did you miss something?" "Keep digging, I'm running out of patience." "Yes, Mr. Caldwell." Ethan rested his head in his hand, his brow furrowed. It seemed Ivy wouldn't be so easy to deal with. He needed an ally. When Rosalind landed, she was shocked to see Ethan waiting to pick her up in a Mercedes. She almost dropped her suitcase. You didn't lose your memory." Ethan gave a charming smile. "I think we need to talk. You were probably looking for me too." Rosalind couldn't help but roll her eyes. "Don't be so conceited. I didn't come back for you. Did you have someone track me? How did you find me so quickly? I need to go home. I don't have time for a reunion." "Wait," Ethan said, gently stopping her. "You're investigating Ivy too, aren't you?" Rosalind raised an eyebrow but didn't deny it. They sat in a cafe and explained everything to each other. Rosalind was stunned. She never thought Ethan would secretly investigate Ivy. She had assumed he was deeply in love with her. "Rosalind, I finally understand how wronged you were in the past. I never imagined Ivy was so manipulative. But don't worry, she'll soon get what she deserves." "But you just said she's pregnant." Don't you want to be responsible for her and the child? Rosalind sneered. That child is definitely not mine, Ethan said, slightly agitated. Are you so sure? Rosalind stared at him, her expression unreadable. Just trust me. Seeing his certainty, Rosalind didn't press the issue. When Ivy got home, she found her adoptive parents beaming. Mom, Dad, what's the happy news? She asked. Helen took her hand, her face full of smiles. Ivy, congratulations, the Caldwells came to propose. Ivy was overjoyed. Really? I'm going to marry Ethan? Arthur also smiled. Of course, it's true, the date is already set for next week. So soon? But I haven't prepared anything, Ivy muttered. No need to prepare. Ethan has arranged everything. He said he doesn't want to make you and the baby wait any longer. He's eager to marry you, Helen said, beaming. I see, Ivy said with a shy smile. The thought that her baby had successfully secured her place in the Caldwell family made her too excited to think twice. On the way back, Rosalind was shocked by Ethan's plan. Are you sure you want to be so cruel to her? Ethan, after all, she and you were once. Don't bring up the past. I was blind not to see what a terrible woman she is. The car accident was her doing. If I hadn't been prepared, I wouldn't be standing here in front of you right now. Ethan's veins bulged on his hands as he gritted his teeth. Rosalind's head was spinning. The car crash was orchestrated by Ivy, not Julian. She had really misunderstood him. A wave of guilt washed over her. She hated herself for not trusting Julian. As soon as she finished her business here, she had to go back and find him. Chapter 24. Ethan deliberately drove Rosalind back to their villa. After she got out of the car, she looked at him, confused. Ethan, we're over. Why did you bring me here? Ethan gazed at her affectionately. This house is filled with our memories together. I don't think you've forgotten them. Rosalind, after this is all over, I hope you'll come back to me, okay? Julian has many people who love him. He doesn't need you. But me, I can't live without you. Rosalind's eyes were filled with exasperation. Can you get a grip? No one in this world can't live without someone else. You think you can't live without me because you haven't accepted the fact that I've left. You can't admit that I don't love you anymore, so you're in pain and you feel resentful. But frankly, that's just a manifestation of your own selfishness. Ethan's voice choked. No, Rosalind, I really do love you. I didn't know how to cherish you before and I hurt you. But I've reflected on it, and I know I can make you happy again. Rosalind rubbed her forehead. If you really loved me, you never would have gotten involved with Ivy in the first place. You wouldn't have suspected me because of her lies, and you wouldn't have let her insult and slander me. You certainly wouldn't have repeatedly humiliated me in front of everyone for her sake, making me look like a clown. Ethan hung his head in defeat, silent. He also hated himself for being so cruel to Rosalind back then. To force her to give up and annul the engagement, he had been heart-wrenchingly cold every single time. Rosalind sneered. See, you only love yourself. I've made myself clear. I hope you'll completely let go of your obsession with me. The person I love now is Julian, but you don't even know him. Ethan clenched his fists. Then I'll get to know him slowly. Rosalind turned and left, heading to the hotel she had booked. He wanted to chase after her, but his phone rang. He answered and listened to the detective's full report. Then he looked at the files and photos that were sent to him. His face turned from red to white, then white to black, and finally, a shade of green. He wanted to tear the two people in the photos to shreds. Ivy, you just wait soon. The Caldwell family had the wedding venue set up. The banquet was about to begin. The Caldwell elders greeted guests at the door, while Ivy waited in her private dressing room. As she was adjusting her makeup in the mirror, a man embraced her from behind. She jumped, startled, and spun around. When she saw who it was, her eyes widened. Are you crazy? How dare you come here to see me? Do you know that today I know, baby, your dream is about to come true. Once you're the Caldwell's daughter-in-law, all their assets will be yours, the man said, gently pinching her chin with a smirk. But you shouldn't have come here. If they find out we're finished, Ivy warned him. Just then they heard Ethan's footsteps outside the door. Ivy, are you ready? I can't wait, he called out. Ivy's face paled. She quickly pushed the man away. He's here, quick, hide now. The door swung open. Ethan glanced around the room and saw only Ivy sitting on the stool. He leaned in close to her face. Look at you, the ceremony hasn't even started and you're already sweating. Here, let me wipe that for you. I'll call the makeup artist to do a touch-up. Ivy quickly stood up, a flicker of unease on her face. "No, it's fine. I can do it myself." Chapter 25. Ethan watched her flustered state, a smile still on his face as he patted her shoulder, but his eyes were glinting with a cold light. "All right then. The ceremony is about to start. My beautiful bride, you will be the center of attention today." Ivy leaned against his shoulder with a strained smile. "Wait for me." As Ethan left, he casually glanced at the curtains and saw a pair of leather shoes peeking out from underneath. His expression suddenly darkened. Soon, the show would begin. As the main music started, Ivy, the bride, slowly walked down the red carpet. The Mercer and Caldwell elders sat in the front row, with the other distinguished guests seated behind them. Ivy's face was aglow with a sweet, happy smile, but when she saw Rosalind sitting nearby, waving at her, she stiffened for a moment, her smile almost faltering. She had no idea Rosalind was back in the country, let alone at her wedding. Had she and Ethan reconciled? Is that why he invited her? Wait, a terrible thought struck Ivy. Her hands, clutching the bouquet, began to tremble. Isn't Ethan supposed to have amnesia? How could he remember Rosalind unless? He never lost his memory. At that thought, her legs began to feel weak. Looking at Ethan, who stood ahead with a seemingly gentle smile, she felt a chill run down her spine. Every step became an immense struggle. Ethan walked over and supported her, whispering in her ear, "Walking so slowly? How are you going to get through the wedding you've been dreaming of?" Ivy forced a highly unnatural smile and said nothing. She didn't know what Ethan was planning, but she knew one thing for sure. He wouldn't let her get away with it. As the couple reached the center of the stage, the master of ceremonies raised the microphone. "Let's welcome our bride and groom first. Let's watch a video and witness their love story." A smirk played on Ethan's lips. As the music started again, the large screen behind them lit up with a series of photos. The guests in the audience grew increasingly uneasy, their faces turning red and then pale. Whispers began to spread. "Oh my God, what is this? Who is that man with Ivy? How could they do something like that? It's obvious she's been cheating on him, and she still has the nerve to marry the heir of the Caldwell family. How shameless." Exactly. Seeing the guests' reactions, Ivy immediately turned to look at the screen. The sight nearly made her faint. The screen was filled with intimate photos of her with another man. The bouquet fell from her hands, and her face was a mask of panic. Ethan's parents and the Mercers shot to their feet, their faces contorted with fury. "Ivy, how could you?" Ivy shook her head repeatedly, crying. No, Mom, Dad, that's not me. The photos and videos are right here. How can you still deny it?" Rosalind's parents were heartbroken. "Ivy, how could you do something like this? You've brought shame upon the Mercer family. Your late father would be so disappointed in you." At a loss for words, Ivy turned to Ethan, her eyes wide with shock. "It was you. I knew you didn't have amnesia, Ethan. How could you be so cruel to me?" Ethan sneered. "You're only realizing this now. It's too late. If I hadn't been careful, I would never have known you were cheating on me now. Tell me, who is this man? Is he here today?" Ivy's lips trembled. Like a drowning person, she desperately grabbed his arm. "Ethan, those photos must be photoshopped. I didn't do it." Chapter 26. At that moment, Rosalind stood up and played a recording from her phone at full volume. "Once I marry into the Caldwell family, Ethan will be useless. When he dies, I'll inherit all his assets." Ivy's arrogant voice filled the hall. A man chuckled. Tusk, you're really willing to be that ruthless. But after you get rid of him, don't forget there's still one more threat in the Mercer family." "Of course I haven't forgotten. Since Rosalind has left, let's make sure she never comes back. Then the Mercer family fortune will be all mine." The two of them cackled, followed by the unmistakable sounds of them in bed. It was utterly obscene. The entire hall fell into a stunned, eerie silence. Ivy's face was ashen, the blood rushing to her head. Her eyes bloodshot, she pointed a trembling finger at Rosalind. "Rosalind, you framed me. How dare you?" Before she could finish, Ethan stepped forward. "Everyone, you heard it. A recording can't be faked. Not only was I cheated on, but there was a plot to have me killed. The car accident was no accident. She was the mastermind. Ivy, what else do you have to say?" Hearing this, Eleanor Caldwell nearly fainted. Robert Caldwell's face was dark with fury as he glared at the Mercers and Ivy. "This venomous vixen, she tried to kill my son and still dared to try and marry into our family," he roared. Rosalind's parents were also in shock. They couldn't believe Ivy was this kind of woman, not only plotting for the Caldwells' fortune, but also coveting their own. Ivy, explain yourself. How did you become like this? You used to be so obedient and filial, but now you've done such a monstrous thing, Arthur accused. Ivy's eyes turned red, and then she burst out laughing, pointing at Rosalind's parents. Mom, Dad, you don't believe me either. The only reason I acted so well behaved in front of you was to make you like me and lower your guard. Helen turned to Rosalind. Rosalind, is this true? Are you doing this because you hate her? Thinking of all the pain she had endured, Rosalind felt that even with all the evidence she had, it was pointless to explain anything to them. Ethan spoke to Rosalind's parents. Uncle Arthur, Auntie Helen, please check your phones right now. I've had my private investigator send you all the files. After you read them, you will understand how deeply you've misunderstood Rosalind. Hesitantly, they took out their phones. After reading through all the information, they slumped back in their chairs, too stunned to speak. Ivy, you are a terrible woman and we treated you like our own daughter. No, I didn't do it, none of it was me, Ivy screamed, nearly hysterical, her hair a mess as the guests pointed and whispered. You still won't admit it, even now. You have some nerve, Rosalind scoffed. Ivy lunged at her, grabbing her by the collar. You and Ethan conspired to frame me, didn't you? Even without me, you two will never be together. Do you think doing this will make Ethan come back to you? Let me tell you, keep dreaming I'm carrying his child. Do you understand? His child, the hall erupted again. Rosalind's parents covered their faces in shame, and Ethan's parents looked on in disbelief, their expressions a mixture of shock and disgust. Chapter 27. Hearing this, Ethan sneered. You still dare to claim the child in your belly is mine? I remember one day you deliberately got me drunk and lay naked beside me. But I was only pretending to be drunk. I never touched you. Who is the child's father? Should I bring him out here right now? Ivy's expression grew even more panicked. She stumbled towards Ethan, her voice pleading. Please, don't, Ethan. I was wrong. I shouldn't have hired someone to crash into your car. I shouldn't have coveted your fortune. I was too greedy. I'm begging you, let me go. Please let me go. Bring him in. Ethan showed no mercy. Let go of me, a man shouted as he was dragged onto the stage. He was dressed in a sharp suit, looking respectable at first glance. But a closer look revealed him to be a sanctimonious hypocrite. Rosalind stared, stunned. She recognized the man. It was the current director of the Oralia Art Museum, Mr. Chapman. He and Ivy were colleagues. So they had been secretly involved all along. No wonder her exhibition design had been so flawless. She had an expert guiding her from behind the scenes. Some of the distinguished guests also recognized the man and began to sneer at him. To conspire with a woman like that to harm people, he's truly ruined his own future. They're disgusting, a wolf in sheep's clothing and a snake-hearted woman, a perfect match. They deserve what's coming to them. A moment later, 2 police officers arrived and handcuffed the man. Mr. Chapman, we suspect you of being involved in an arson case and of intentionally causing harm to others. Please cooperate with our investigation. Miss Langley, you'll be coming with us as well, they said, turning to Ivy. I'm not going. I did nothing wrong. I didn't commit arson. And I didn't kill my father. Ivy trembled uncontrollably, her words jumbled. The next second, she realized what she had said, and her body swayed. Rosalind's parents stood frozen. Ivy, that fire wasn't an accident. You said it. You knew your adoptive father and I were in there, and you still... Helen's finger trembled as she pointed at her. Ivy's face turned deathly pale. She had no energy left to argue. She suddenly became calm, wiped the tears from her face, and laughed coldly. It's your fault for being so stupid. You're only figuring it out now, that's right. At first, I just wanted to burn you two to death so that Rosalind would lose her parents. Arthur's face turned white with rage, his lip twitching. Rosalind remained calm. But we were such good friends back then. Why would you do that to me? Because I hate you. I hate that you were born at the top of the pyramid. I hate that you could have everything I never had without lifting a finger. I hate that your parents loved you so much. That's why I wanted you to lose them. But then, I realized I couldn't let you off that easily. Ivy shook her head and glared at Rosalind. If they died, you would have inherited everything. I'm not that stupid, so I came up with a better idea. I had my dad go in and save them. As soon as he got them out, I had old Chapman knock down a pillar to crush him. "Shut up, don't say another word," the man, Chapman, panicked. But Ivy was beyond caring. "I didn't want my dad to die either, but if he didn't, how could I have gotten into the Mercer family? The only right thing he ever did was beg them to adopt me before he died. For that, I really have to thank him." "Ha ha ha ha. You're a madwoman." Rosalind stood frozen. This woman was so terrifying she wouldn't even spare her own father. Ethan was also stunned. Ivy's wickedness was beyond his imagination. "Miss Langley, please cooperate, come with us," the police officer said, restraining Ivy. The guests watched in disbelief as Ivy and her lover were escorted into a police car. "What a monster," Arthur sighed heavily. Helen wiped her tears. "We loved her like our own daughter, and she wanted to kill us. It's too much. Everyone, I apologize for the inconvenience. Today was a setup to expose Ivy Langley's true colors. Please understand," Ethan said into the microphone. The guests expressed their sympathies and began to leave. Seeing that the Mercers had also been deceived, the Caldwells felt a sense of shared misfortune and decided not to hold it against them for pushing the marriage to Ivy. Only then did it dawn on Rosalind's parents how much they had hurt their own daughter. They began to try and make amends. Chapter 28. Just as Rosalind was about to leave, her parents called out to her. "Rosie, we were wrong. We shouldn't have treated you like that. It's our fault for believing Ivy's side of the story. We thought you hated her for taking some of our love, but we never meant to be biased. You know you've always been our precious daughter. How could we ever bear to see you wronged? Can you forgive us?" Her mother, Helen, said, her voice choked with tears. "Yes, we failed to see her true colors, which led to this situation. Rosalind, I was wrong to treat you so poorly before. It was my fault. If you're willing to forgive us, we can still be a happy family. We'll treat you right, and everything the Mercer family has will still be yours," her father, Arthur, said sincerely. Rosalind was torn. She couldn't bring herself to hate her parents, but she couldn't fully forgive them for all the pain they had caused her either. The emotional scars were too deep. Even when a wound heals, a scar remains. She sighed softly. "Mom, Dad, it doesn't matter anymore whether I forgive you or not. Let the past be the past. Let's all just live our lives well from now on. You probably don't know that I'm studying in Paris. I'm doing very well there, and I have someone who loves me very much. So I think I need to learn to grow on my own." Faced with Rosalind's determined expression, her parents wanted to say more, but Ethan, who had walked over, spoke first. "Uncle Arthur, Auntie Helen, just let her follow her own path. One day you will be very proud of her." They heard him and couldn't argue, so they simply nodded in agreement. "I'll take you back to your hotel," Ethan said to her. Rosalind managed a small smile. On the way back, Ethan received a call from the police. After he hung up, his expression was grave. "What is it?" Rosalind asked. The police said Ivy started bleeding heavily on the way to the station. She was rushed to the hospital, but she lost the baby. "She's emotionally unstable and is still under observation," he said, a lump in his throat. After a long silence, he asked, "Do you think I'm responsible for what happened to that innocent child? He could have come into this world." Rosalind's expression softened. She comforted him gently. "There are many things we can't control. We have to accept the uncertainties of life." Back at the hotel, she received a call from Julian. "Are you leaving me? I'm very calm right now. It took me a long time to work up the courage to call you," he said, his voice full of hurt. Rosalind realized she had truly misunderstood him and shouldn't have given him the cold shoulder. Her voice softened. "Julian, I was wrong. I shouldn't have misunderstood you that day. Wait for me to come back for your birthday party tomorrow. I'm going to book my ticket right now, but I'm at," Julian started to say, but Rosalind had already hung up. He smiled helplessly. It seemed he would have to go find her himself. After Rosalind showered, she received a call from an unknown number, telling her to come downstairs to pick up a package. Someone had sent her a gift. Rosalind wondered who it could be. She figured it could only be Julian, who loved to surprise her. She changed into clean clothes and went downstairs, her heart full of happy anticipation. But when she got downstairs, there was no delivery person in sight. She looked down at her phone, about to call, when Ivy lunged out of nowhere, brandishing a fruit knife and charging at her. "Look out," a voice shouted. Rosalind looked up, her mind blank with terror. In the next second, a warm body slammed into her, holding her tightly in a protective embrace. Someone in the crowd screamed, "She has a knife!" The crazed Ivy was quickly subdued by several bystanders, and someone immediately called the police. Rosalind's world fell silent. She stood stunned for a moment before slowly pulling the man away from her. "Julian?" Rosalind was in shock. She saw a deep gash on his back, blood splattering onto the ground. Her eyes instantly turned red. Julian, why?" Rosalind choked out, looking at his weakened state. "Why are you so foolish?" Julian's lips were pale, but he managed a faint smile. "I didn't want you to get hurt." Hearing this, Rosalind burst into tears. "You idiot, I won't let anything happen to you either." The police quickly arrived and took Ivy away, who was screaming incoherently. Rosalind ignored her and followed the ambulance to the hospital with Julian. Chapter 29. After receiving treatment, the doctor remarked that it was fortunate the patient was in good physical condition. Although his back was injured, no vital organs were damaged, which made recovery relatively straightforward. Julian was soon moved to a private VIP room. For several days, Rosalind took care of him, and he gradually regained his strength. As Rosalind was feeding him porridge, he suddenly grabbed her hand with a wronged expression. "My birthday party is ruined. How are you going to make it up to me?" She knew how much effort Julian had put into the party, partly for her. It was a shame that his accident had forced them to cancel it. All right, how about I throw you a new party myself?" Rosalind said, trying to soothe his discontent. HMPH, Julian feigned displeasure and turned his head away petulantly. Seeing his adorable pout, Rosalind couldn't help but chuckle. "Oh, so the great Mr. Hawthorne has a childish side. Who wants another party? I want you to compensate me in a different way," Julian said with a mischievous grin. Rosalind narrowed her eyes at him. "You're still recovering. No funny business, I'm almost fully recovered. See? I have plenty of strength," he said, wrapping a strong arm around her waist and pulling her against his warm chest. "You," Rosalind's face flushed red as she struggled to get up. "You he budmash henus? There's more where that came from," he whispered, his lips gently covering hers. Their souls intertwined, lost in a passionate kiss. Half an hour later, Julian reluctantly pulled away, his ears red and his breathing heavy. He nibbled on her earlobe. "When I get out of the hospital, you're coming with me somewhere." "Okay," Rosalind said, her face still flushed as she buried her head in his neck and nodded gently. Julian stroked her soft, dark hair, his smile full of adoration. Ethan stood outside the door, but he didn't go in. After a moment, he sighed softly and slowly walked away. When Rosalind returned to her hotel to freshen up, she found Ethan waiting for her on the sofa in the lobby. "I came to tell you, they've been sentenced. After a full investigation, they found more crimes than we even knew about. They'll be spending the rest of their lives in prison." Rosalind took the newspaper he handed her and scanned the headlines. There were over a dozen charges. "They brought this on themselves." "Ivy said she wants to see you one last time," Ethan said after a moment of hesitation. The next day, Rosalind went to the prison. "I realized the person I wronged the most was you. Can you still forgive me?" Ivy asked, her eyes dull and lifeless. "Ivy, the person you wronged the most wasn't me. It was your own father," Rosalind said calmly. Those few words made tears stream down Ivy's face, and she was overcome with grief. "Stay here forever and repent to your father," Rosalind said, her final words to her, before turning and walking away without a second glance. After Julian was discharged from the hospital, he immediately whisked Rosalind into a car and sped off. "We're here, close your eyes, I have a surprise for you." Seeing his mysterious expression, Rosalind had no choice but to comply. She followed him for a short distance. When she opened her eyes, she was greeted by the sight of a massive proposal scene. Pink balloons formed a romantic castle, surrounded by a sea of red and pink roses. A large screen played a slideshow of their photos from Paris, set to beautiful music. "You!" Rosalind gasped, her mouth wide open in surprise. "I booked the whole place. It might be a bit rushed. If you had come to my birthday party, the setup would have been 100 times better," Julian said with a gentle smile. "So your birthday party was a proposal?" Rosalind asked, still in shock. "Yes, it's a shame. I was on the rooftop that day confirming the details with the proposal team. I didn't tell you because I didn't want to spoil the surprise, but you misunderstood me," he said with a slight pout. "Ahem," Rosalind looked down, feeling guilty. "So, as punishment, you have to marry me. Do you agree?" he asked, pulling out a dazzling diamond ring from his pocket. "Wait," Ethan appeared out of nowhere, calling out to Julian. "Tell me, will you love her and take care of her for the rest of your life?" Julian looked at Rosalind with unwavering determination. "For this life, and all my future lives, I will only love Rosalind Mercer." Ethan let out a resigned smile. "You'd better keep your word, kid. If I find out you're not treating her right, don't blame me for stealing her away. Rosalind, I'm letting you go." "Be happy," he said, his eyes glistening with tears as he slowly disappeared into the distance. "I, Rosalind Mercer, agree to marry Julian Hawthorne," Rosalind said, embracing him tightly. In that moment, all the noise of the world faded away, leaving only the sound of their beating hearts.